To a special unscripted episode of Necrocinema Ex Mortis. It's Jason's son and the Man in Black here, based on unscripted for MIBReviews.com. I'm doing this one on my webcam today. You might have noticed because it's 5 o'clock in the morning and I don't want to wake anybody. The reason why I'm doing this at 5 o'clock in the morning is because I just watched two movies with the same title. Midnight showing of The Thing. I came home and Netflixed The Thing. Now, it might shock a lot of people, but I never watched John Carpenter's The Thing before today because, well, it was overhyped to me. Everybody who's everybody came to me with the same opinion of it. So I'm, just if that's all you hear, how great it is, none of the details. No dissenting opinions. It's like Citizen Kane. The only reason I want to see Citizen Kane is to hope for the chance to bash it. I've known nothing about it other than that everybody seems to praise it. Let's get on to the movies we're talking about. How do I like the original? How do I like the prequel? How does a prequel stand up as a prequel? And everything else. Well, we've got a few categories. We've got effects, scares, characters, story. Let's start with the effects. Now, the original, practical effects. The new one, a mixture of practical and CGI. Both equal. Both awesome. Not saying they're the same. Like I said, one's more practical, one has some more CGI. Which has its benefits. Now, if you remember from the original, from the beginning of The Thing, there were a few scenes that they pretty much knew they would not have been able to do with the effects of that time, but they were able to do a still sculpture of it. So that's what they did. And all of these effects from the beginning of the movie were replicated perfectly for the prequel. Now, the original showed a little bit of the faults of practical effects, some silly looking stuff at the end. The prequel has some things that are a little more obviously CGI, a little too much shine, that type of thing. It's about as realistic as, I'd say, the newer Harry Potter movies, so if you can get around that, you can get around this. If you can get around the original thing, you can get around this, unless you just can't get over the fact that it's CGI. Oh my god, it's CGI. But practical effects can only do so much, CGI can only do so much. They both do a very, very good job. They each have a little bit of moments where you're like, but, that's about it. Considering how much bitches, okay, cameo from the cat because he refused to stay out of my lap. But they both do a very good job. In fact, now the scares, I would also say they're pretty much equal. Now, the prequel did not try to do the same things as the original, but it was very much set for the same tone in a lot of ways. So, the effects, the thing did different things, but they were equivalent. If you understand, it didn't rise out of somebody's chest in that awesome scene. It didn't have that amalgamation of dog and thing and human from the end. Any of that stuff. What it did have, it had a few more of the scenes with the spider thing going on. A little bit more Cthulhu-y. You could see a little bit more of the tentacles. You could see how it was when it first emerged. They didn't show you bright visuals of its original form, but you could pretty much make out what it was. I mean, you basically see it in the original. If you take away the dog in that scene when the dog opens up, and made it basically slimy meat, that's pretty much what you get. One difference in the creature which might be a fault of the it's a fault of the new one as a prequel, but it's not a fault of it as a movie. Now in the original, it almost gave you the impression it was a plant in one scene. If you remember the scene I'm talking about, when the guy's head separates from his body. This is the same scene I was mentioning with him with it coming out of the chest and everything. It's all green tentacles and things holding it together. Kind of gives you the impression that the thing is a plant organism, and that's where it's getting its abilities. They never outright say it, and you never see it in another scene, but that one scene kind of implies that. Now, those similar tentacle type things appear in the prequel, and in the occasion that they do, they are red. This thing is all meat. So I would say it's a failing of it as a prequel. As a movie, I think it makes it a little scarier that it's an actual animal. Not a ton, but I think I prefer the red over the green just that a bit. Neither one of these are a major thing in either of their movies, but I felt it worth commenting on because it is a difference. Now, where these films really differ and where the original starts to shine is the characters. Now, the original isn't exactly about the most likable characters, anybody you want to see survive or anything, particularly. They're not, the type of people that you'd want to have watching your back. And that's a lot of the strength of it. Both films have the same paranoia built up. You never know who's the thing. But in the original, there's that fact where it doesn't matter if you're the thing or not. If you get on somebody's bad side and they have a chance, they will kill you. Tensions are that high. A lot of alpha males butting heads all together. Pretty much everyone in that movie is an alpha male. Pretty much everybody in that movie resents the fact that anybody else has any sort of control over the situation. They're pretty much, they're willing to kill each other at the slightest provocation, and on some occasions they do. Now, in the prequel, we have our main character, who is a woman, a scientist, who pretty much, anybody who watches horror movies knows that only women have brain cells in horror movies. Like I said, in the original thing, everybody was willing to kill each other at the slightest provocation. Here we have a woman, so woman horror movie automatically means super genius. Every decision she makes is right. Every decision somebody else makes is usually wrong. So we pretty much can know straight off the bat, there's the horror of the situation is toned down a little bit because we have this responsible, intelligent character kind of guiding us through. We pretty much see it through her eyes. We kind of see it through MacReady's eyes in the original, but there are times, he's kind of insane. There are times where we're made to doubt his humanity. That doesn't happen with Kate in the prequel, so I think a lot of people, not necessarily hardcore horror fans, but a lot of other people might prefer this. It's a more relatable character. Gives you something to latch onto. It hurts the horror atmosphere a little bit. As for the other characters, the characters in The Thing, they all pretty much stood out in one way or another. They all were very active. Even if you can't turn around and remember all of their names, every character had their quirks. Every character was very active in what they did. Every character was very demanding. Now, in the new one, they're not quite as memorable. Basically, there's a lot of people that look very similar, which I know there's a couple people that look similar in the original, but they didn't last very long. But there's a lot of, pretty much everybody's a white man in the new one. There's a black man, and he's really not written to be a character. He's written to be a black man. He's the only person who shoots somebody with a pistol, and, he talks like a black man. Even though he's a pilot, he talks like, a movie black man. this thing jumped through the fucking ceiling. You know, he's not there to be an intelligent, three-dimensional character. He's there to be a black man in the movie. That's not to say he dies first. He didn't die last. I'm trying to remember how and when he did die. I think it was in this one massacre scene where pretty much a ton of people died. I can't remember where in that massacre he was, but there were plenty of deaths both before and after that. There were a few Norwegians who didn't speak any English, and well, a couple of them sort of play the role of Windows and the other guy do in the first, where they pretty much back up the person in charge. Now in this case, she's not the person in charge because she has the weapon. She's not holding them hostage. She's just in charge because she's got the good ideas, and her ideas happen to make people less trust the people who are in actual positions of authority. You know, it's handled more rationally, more intelligently, something you don't often see in horror movies. The problem with that is that it diminishes the horror of the situation. So that's why this will be a weaker movie, even if all of the other elements are very awesome. Now, even if that makes it a weaker horror movie, I don't think it's not a heavy criticism I'm laying on it, because they could not have, if they had been any closer to the original, this would have been a waste of time. Because it's the same setup. I mean, you can even tell from the original. Both of them are isolated camps that can't get in contact with each other within a couple weeks of each other. Everyone dies in both of them, pretty much, from the same cause, same setting, Antarctica. If you got any closer at all, this would have been a complete waste of time. I would have nothing to recommend it. So the fact that there is that difference, even if it weakens it, makes it a valid movie. Now, I would almost say that, well, basically you look at all the things that would make a good sequel is what makes up this movie. I'm kind of fluctuating between a 7 or an 8 out of 10. I'm a little tired. I'm a little tired, and everyone else in the house is asleep. That's why I'm kind of subdued in this video. I want to keep your attention, but I don't want to wake up everybody in the house doing it. And again, I'm also a little tired. So, trying to think if there's anything else to say in that regard. Like I said, unscripted. To get back a little bit more on the ending of the new one, the ending is very well done. Pretty much everything, I didn't know at the time because I hadn't seen the original yet, but a ton of shots were there just to set up the original. The scene during the credits and the scene at the beginning of the original meld together perfectly. You get the same shot, the guy in the chair, frozen and dead. You get the same, like I already mentioned, the not by name, but the the mutant amalgamation of the two faces that you see in the original. They fight that kind of. It's a lot of very good setup. Now, there's one thing about the ending of the new one that I have to wonder about, and that's, there's there's this actual, there's kind of a climax in the original, but there's a bit more of a climax fight between the main protagonist, Kate, and the Thing. My problem with that is Kate survives that, and then she disappears from the movie. Now, I don't know if I missed the part where she died, but she never made it where she was going, obviously, or the original would not have happened the way it did. So, either they just wanted to give a happy ending for the audience, or she died and I missed it. Now, I don't think I was writing notes I didn't exactly write a ton of notes during this movie, and when I did, I pretty much tried to reserve it for when nothing was happening. But I don't think I was writing any notes toward the end of the movie, so I can't imagine how I would have missed her dying, but that's the only explanation I could come up with. So, speaking of my notes, let me grab them, see if there's anything else important. Ah, yes. Well, this is actually something that was a little different from the original, and a criticism I also would have. In the original, the alien had a kind of distinct roaring sound. You didn't hear it a lot, but it was distinct. Now, in the new movie, the thing pretty much has the same scream as, you know, a xenomorph from Aliens, probably something from a Jurassic Park type thing. You know, it's the same scream you hear in every horror movie. Probably a lot of ghost movies, you know, anything you can think of something unnatural and it screams. This is pretty much that same scream. So, you know, that definitely kind of gives you a more generic horror feel. And in the original, they kind of do a little better job than that. Trying to decide if this is, I guess this is still a point. Now, obviously this is not entirely the case, but especially in the beginning of the movie, you get a lot of draws to Alien and AVP. Now, obviously the whole Antarctica thing, you know, bringing in a team to find this thing, that's pretty much the only similarities to AVP, and they could not have gotten around that. So, as for similarities to Alien, you know, the alien, well, I call it an alien anyway. They don't. The Thing is still a stupid name. Thing from Another World made sense. Just The Thing, unless you knew about The Thing from Another World, is a stupid name for either movie. It's especially a stupid name for a prequel to a movie of the same name, but you get one stupid name point for the original and two stupid name points for the new one. Anyway, this thing, you know, it functions like an alien from Alien. To an extent, in the new one actually, especially because there's a literal face hugger at one point. I was actually thinking the comparison between face huggers, chest bursters, and then it literally, in this case it was a hand, you know how parts of the thing come alive. Or if you've never seen either of them, you do now. But this hand becomes a face hugger. And then, not quite as subtle as a chest burster, but same overall effect. You know, walk around with it inside you for a while and then bursts open as the Thing. Alright, final thoughts on these movies. The new one, would I give it the same 10 out of 10 a lot of people do? Sorry. The original, would I give it the same 10 out of 10 a lot of people do? I'd have to think on it. I'd have to sleep on it. It's possible. Would I put it up there with Nightmare on Elm Street and Hellraiser, which are my two horror 10 out of 10s, and potentially Alien? I might. It's definitely a 9 or a 10. Now the new one, mainly because it's odd because they're so similar, but I can't think of any. I can really only think of the new one as a 7.5 out of 10. I mean, the effects are extremely well done. The actual scares are very good. The atmosphere is weak. Characters are slightly less believable. And brings it down to not an average 5 movie, but an average good movie level. So, you know, in the 7 range. I don't think it's quite good enough to call it an 8. So I'm going to call it a 7.5. That's about all I have to say on these movies. So, what do I recommend? I would recommend, don't go and watch the original and then go watch the new one. I wouldn't actually recommend watching them in the same day either, just because they're very similar stories. But I would also say watch them close enough that you can see the similarities. So, you know, a week apart, but that week isn't mandatory. I would just say if you're watching them back to back, watch the new one and then the original. So, that's my thoughts on The Thing and The Thing. Until next time.